Hi, welcome back to the fifth video, and in this video we are going to talk about how to encode categorical data. So let's start. So let's first talk about why we need to encode the categorical data. So if you look at our data set, you will see like we have two columns. The first one, country, and the second one, purchased. They are the string data. You need to understand one thing. The way machine learning model works is that to use our values from the data should be in the form of numbers so that the machine learning model can find the patterns and then predict the values based on those patterns. So string data, it's pretty much useless for those machine learning models. So what we do is that we usually turn this string data with categorical data into numbers. So that's the strategy we use to make useful insights out of this categorical data and to use it to find the relationship to predict the results. So let's start. So if you look at the country column, you can see like there are three possible values, which mean that the country value could be either France, either Spain, or Germany. And if you look at the purchase, you can see there are only two possible values, either yes or no. So the number of categories in purchased column is 2, no or yes. And in country column, the number of categories are 3, France, Spain, and Germany. Now the question is how to encode this categorical data. So for that, we have two strategies. The first one, which we called one-hot encoding. Every value in the category, we create a new column. So let's say for our country column, we have 3 categories. So what we will do, we will create 3 new columns, and we will have we will have this vector 0, 0, 1, and for the first column, we will have 1 if the category value is France. If it's not, we will have 0. For the second, if the category value is Germany, we will have 1. Otherwise, we will have 0. And the same goes for the third one. If the category value is Spain, we will have the value as 1. Otherwise, the value would be 0. So that's how we transform the string categorical data into numerical data. Now you may say like, if the whole purpose for transformation is to transform the string data into a number, why did not you assign some values to the each category, like the 1 to France, 2 to Spain, and 3 to Germany, instead of creating 3 additional columns? Okay, the problem with that approach is that if we assign some sort of value to each column, it adds a weight, which can cause problems for a machine learning model. To if we add the weights, it will impact the results of the machine learning model, because now the machine learning model will think of this like one value is greater than another. Like if I give 3 value to Germany and 1 to France, now the 3 is greater than 1, and which will somehow impact the internal working of machine learning model, and which will impact the results. And we don't want that. So that's why we will create these vectors and basically this additional column. So let's start with the code. So yeah, so this is the example we have previously, and I will use the same sheet, and I will also open my data set here. Okay, so let's create a new section here. Let's call this section so we will start from importing a column transformer class from the sklearn library. For that, we will use this line from sklearn compose module import column transformer. Okay, and the next thing we will import is the one-hot encoder class, and we will import it from again sklearn library. At this time, different module called preprocessing. Okay, now actually it should be preprocessing. Yeah, import one-hot encoder. Okay, we will start by creating an object of the column transformer. Okay, and let's create an object of this. Okay, so this column transformer need 2 parameters. The first one is gonna tell how we want our data to get transformed. And the second one is the remainder value, which I will explain later. Okay, so this transformer, we are gonna pass couple of values. The first one is the value is gonna be encoder, which will tell this encoder how exactly we want our data to get transformed, which in our case is encoder. Like we want our data to encode it, so we will pass encoder. The second is gonna be the object of this one hot encoder. Basically, we are providing the object like how we want our data, use this object to transform our data. So we'll pass one object of one hot encoder. Okay, I will create an object. And the last value is gonna be which column we want to transform. So right now, the strategy is that for the country column, we will use this one hot encoder. And for the purchase, we will use the label encoder. And I will explain the label encoder later. But for now, we only want to use this one hot encoder for country. The reason for using one hot encoder for the country and the label encoder for the purchase is that in country, we have more than 2 categories. And that's why the one hot encoder is a better choice. And in purchase, we have only 2 categories. So either we can have 0 or 1. So we will use the label encoder, 0 for one value and 1 for the other value. Okay. So I will give which column I want to encode, which in my scenario is the column number 0. And the second value I'm passing is that, remainder. So this remainder tells this column transformer what to do with the other columns data. Like if I won't pass this, we'll only transform this column and will return this. If I will pass it and I set the value as pass through R or UGS. So now what it will do, it will transform this column, and for the rest of the column, it will just return them as they are right now. That's exactly what we want. So let's go to the next step and use this column transform to the transformation. Now, if you have seen in our last example, we are calling 2 methods. One is fit and one is transform to do the transformation. You can do that again, but there is a much better way. So there is a one method which can do both, which can fit the data and which can do the transformation as well. And that method is called fit transform. So we will call that method on this object. It's called fit transform. There. And I will pass the value, which is going to be x, my independent variables. I will pass it to this. And this kind of code, it will return the transform data, which I want assigned to the x. So I will do something like this. Now there is one more thing. Our machine learning models, they expect the data in the NumPy 2D array forms. And this is returning a data in a different format. So I will do one additional thing to transform this data back into NumPy array. And at the end, I will just print it to show you, to see like if everything worked fine or not. Okay, so as expected, my data transformation worked. So I got 3 new columns in the data, one for the France, one for the Spain, and one for the Germany. So if you see all the rows where France is, where the value is France, my first column values are 1 and the third last. And you can see for the second column where my category value is Germany, the values are 1. And same goes for the third one, which have 1, where my values are, where the row value, where category value is Spain. So that's all about how to do one hot encoding. Now let's take a look at how to do label encoding. And we do label encoding in scenarios where we have only 2 possible categories, which we have right now in our dependent variable. Either we have yes or no. So for this scenario, we will do the label encoding. So to start with label encoding, I will use same module from sklearn Preprocessing. Okay, import label encoder. Yeah, so we have a label encoder here. And the next thing I will do, I will create an object of this label encoder. And then I will pass my dependent variable column to this one. We'll call fit and transform method and pass the wire to it. Okay, now at this point, you may ask, like in case of the dependent variable, we use this column transformer object and we passed a whole lot of different variables. Why we are not doing that in this scenario? And the answer is very obvious, because here we have different columns and we have more than 2 categories. So we want to be more specific, like which column we want to transform and how we want to transform that column. So that's why we use this column transformer object. But here we only have one column. Why have only one column, which is our dependent column? And so we don't need to pass it, and it's just yes or no. So it's very obvious. So that's why we did not use that code here, and we just use the label encoder directly. So then I have fit transform, and okay, let's see. Yeah, so exactly it worked. So in my transform data, you can check all the occurrence of no got transformed to 0 and occurrence of yes got transformed to 1. So that's how we encode our categorical data for machine learning. And that's it for this video. And in the next video, we will see how we can split the test data and the trained data. And until then, bye-bye. Take care.